Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are tackling a topic that honestly paralyzes almost every beginner in the UI and UX world. Yep, we're talking about user research. Our entire goal today is to hand you a zero-budget, highly actionable playbook so you can gather real, concrete user insights in just 1 week. And the best part? No team, no massive budget, and absolutely no existing users required.
Look, we have all been there, right? You take a course, the instructor tells you to always start with user research, and you immediately hit a brick wall with the classic excuses. You think to yourself, I have no company, no product, no users, and zero money. So what actually happens? You skip the research entirely, you jump straight into your design software, and you end up building a portfolio full of really pretty screens that fundamentally solve nothing, simply because they aren't based on reality. Well, that is exactly the habit we're breaking today.
So here's the exact roadmap we're going to follow to finally stop designing in a vacuum. Breaking the myth, mastering the user interview, usability testing, zero participant methods, turning data into insights, and we'll wrap up with a 5-day challenge.
All right, Section 1, Breaking the Research Myth. Let's really look at what research actually is.
It turns out we need to completely redefine research in our heads. It is not some large-budget scientific lab experiment. It's simply the act of being curious enough to actually check your assumptions. Because here's the hard truth. You are not the user. Your phone, your internet speed, your daily tech habits, they are entirely unusual compared to the general public. Designing based purely on your own preferences isn't designing, it's just guessing. And to stop guessing, you don't need hundreds of participants. Notice this single number, 5. The Nielsen-Norman Group popularized this golden rule of thumb. Testing with just 5 people is enough to uncover the vast majority of usability issues. Why? Well, because the same issues just repeat quickly. The 6th and 7th person will mostly just tell you exactly what you already heard from the first 5. And you can absolutely find 5 people in a single weekend.
Moving on to Section 2, Master the User Interview. Let's talk about mastering conversations.
A user interview is really just a 20 to 30-minute conversation with someone, maybe from Reddit, a Discord server, or just a local community group about how they currently handle a specific task. But to get rich, usable material, you have to follow a golden rule. A genuinely bad question is asking them to predict the future. Like, would you use an app that splits bills automatically? Everyone just says yes to be polite. Humans are terrible at predicting their own future behavior. Instead, you always ask about the past. Ask, tell me about the last time you split a bill with friends. People are incredibly reliable reporters of what they actually did last week.
Now, when you're conducting these interviews, it's absolutely crucial to follow some pretty strict rules. First off, record the conversation, with their permission, of course. You simply cannot listen properly if you are frantically scrambling to write things down. Second, ask one single question, and then just stay quiet. Silence naturally makes people want to elaborate. Third, never explain or defend your idea. Remember, you're a researcher collecting data, you're not a salesperson pitching a product. If they say something that surprises you, follow up by asking why 3 times to dig deeper. And finally, avoid leading questions. Don't ask, was that frustrating? Instead, keep it neutral and ask, how did that feel?
Section 3. Usability testing without labs.
Here is a huge secret. You don't actually need your own finished product to do a usability test. You can just give someone a very specific task on an existing product or even a competitor's app. Tell them, book a window seat on a train to Bangalore for next Friday. When you do this, the absolute hardest rule to follow is this: shut up and watch. Literally. The single biggest mistake any beginner makes is trying to step in and help the user when they start to struggle. The very second you say, oh, actually, the menu is at the top right, you have completely destroyed the research finding. Remember that discomfort and confusion you're watching, those are the exact data points you're looking for.
Of course, it's totally human nature for the participant to eventually look over at you and ask, what should I do here? When they inevitably do that, you need to have a script ready to go in your head. You reply, verbatim, with this exact phrase: what would you do if I was not sitting here? It politely deflects the question right back to them and forces them to rely purely on the interface. That gives you the pure, unfiltered insight you need into exactly where the design is failing them.
Okay, Section 4, Zero Participant Research Methods, how to do research completely alone.
But, hey, what if you truly have zero network, absolutely zero participants, and it's midnight on a Tuesday? Well, our first solo method is review mining. You can scour the App Store, dig into Reddit threads by literally searching the word annoying, check Twitter replies to support accounts, or comb through YouTube comments. What's crucial here is focusing exclusively on the 1, 2, and 3-star reviews. A 5-star review usually just says, nice app. That doesn't help you. But a 2-star review, that is a frustrated user writing a highly detailed, completely free bug report directly for you. They'll tell you exactly which screen broke and exactly what they were trying to achieve. If you collect 100 of these, you can easily start categorizing them into undeniable major themes.
Another totally brilliant solo method is the competitor teardown. It is a highly systematic process that practically trains your designer's eye to spot friction. Here's how it works. You pick one very specific task, say signing up for a new account. You do that exact same task in 4 competing apps. You take a screenshot of every single step of the way, and then you literally count the steps in each app. You will very often find dramatic differences in step counts between competitors, which is an incredibly easy and visually compelling thing to highlight in your portfolio.
And to evaluate those teardowns, like a professional, you need a proven framework, not just your personal taste. Saying, "I don't really like this checkout," isn't research. But using Jakob Nielsen's usability heuristics, that changes everything. You can look at a competitor's app and say, okay, this violates the visibility of system status heuristic because it doesn't show a loading spinner after tapping pay, which is causing users to tap twice. Now that is a professional, actionable finding.
Just a quick, vital warning before we move on. Avoid surveys at first. I know, it looks like the easiest option, which is exactly why it's a massive beginner trap. Writing a survey question that doesn't accidentally lead the user is a genuinely difficult skill. Plus, getting a tiny sample size of, say, 20 responses produces numbers that might look scientific, but they mean absolutely nothing. Stick to the qualitative methods we've just discussed first, so you can actually figure out why things are happening.
Section 5. Turning data into insights. Moving from raw data to actual decisions.
So, you've done the interviews, the usability tests, and the teardowns. Awesome. But research is entirely worthless until it becomes a design decision. The very best way to synthesize all your data is to write every single observation on its own sticky note, one single fact per note. Then you group similar notes together in a process called affinity mapping. A pro tip here, do not name the groups until after you've clustered the notes. Otherwise, you're just going to force data into preconceived boxes. Once you finally have your groups, name them using this ultimate insight formula. Users do X because Y, which causes Z. For example, users retype their address every time because the app saves only one location, which causes them to abandon their food orders. This formula instantly transforms raw, messy observations into clear, highly targeted design problems that you can actually solve.
And finally, Section 6, the 5-day research challenge. Let's put this into practice. I want to challenge you right now to pick an app that you personally find annoying and apply all of these zero-budget methods to it over this next week. Here is your exact timeline mapped out. On day 1, you sit alone and mine 100 low-star reviews to find the biggest pain points. Day 2, you systematically tear down 3 competing apps. Day 3, run 3 usability tests on that frustrating app just by asking friends or people around you. Day 4, you run 2 proper user interviews. And finally, on day 5, you affinity map all of that awesome data and write out your top 3 insights using our formula.
If you actually commit and follow that 5-day roadmap, you are going to finish the week with more credible, real-world research evidence than almost any other beginner portfolio out there. You will have actually earned the right to start designing a solution. So, my final question to you as we wrap up this explainer is this: what assumptions are you going to test this week? It is time to stop guessing, get out there, and start uncovering what users actually need.